Thank you, members. Welcome to the Extraordinary Council meeting this day of the 26th of August 2025. I will read out the fire evacuation procedures. There is no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the committee staff and leave by the exit nearest the large screen at the front of the room and proceed down the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will also advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Webcasting. We are recording the meeting this evening. The webcast will be transmitted live to the Council's YouTube page and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the St George's Suite and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and training purposes. Housekeeping. Could all those present ensure their phones are turned to silent for the duration of the meeting? Please, could members engage respectfully with one another and address your speeches to me as Chairman or Mayor? I will now move on to the business of tonight's agenda, and in doing so, I will take this opportunity to remind you to ensure that any comments are relevant and concise. Item number 1 on the agenda. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Baggott, Turner and Schrader. Are there any further apologies for absence? Councillor Brockman?
Councillor Hammond.
Are there any further apologies? Councillor Callaghan? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, that being done. Declarations of interest, item number 2. Are there any declarations of interest to be made by members? I will take on block the Essex County Council Councillors' declarations of interest. No, thank you. Item number 3, announcements. Deputy Mayor, any announcements? No. Leader of the Council, you have an announcement? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to begin this evening by thanking you and our Chief Executive and the whole of the Democratic Services team for pulling this extraordinary meeting together at such short notice. We all appreciate the effort it takes to make something like this happen. Let me also welcome colleagues back after the summer and also take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to Councillors Shields and Jeanette, who, of course, are taking their seats tonight for the very first time. I want to thank the elections team for their professionalism in running 2 by-elections in such quick succession before the summer recess. Mr. Mayor, September is a crunch time for local government reorganisation. In the coming days, all 15 councils in Essex will be considering the business cases that will be going forward to government. Papers will begin to be published this week across the county. Here in Basildon, we are going further than we have been asked to in terms of letting members and members of the public have full oversight of all 4 options that will be on the table. Can I put on record my huge thanks to all of the officers across finance, across legal, across digital data, the CVS, all of our officers. It has been a monumental task to get to the position that we are in now, with 4 business cases for 3, 4 and 5 council models for us to consider. Huge volumes of work, huge volumes of project management. And they have done an amazing job. And may I also say, and I would say this, wouldn't I, but it has been great to work with the other 14 leaders of all political parties. We disagree or some of us disagree, the overwhelming majority of us don't, but some of us disagree on what the final outcome should be for Essex. But we've all engaged in this process in a really robust, fair and honest way, and I thank them for that. The process here in Basildon is clear as to how we are going to take this forward. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee will meet on the 11th of September, and they will look at all 4 of the business cases. A week later, full council will meet, and again, we will look at all of the business cases. There will be a recommendation, but we will have the opportunity to look at all of them. And then, as is the case in all councils across Essex, it will be Cabinet that will meet the next day to ratify the final decision from the administration, and that will be sent to the government to meet the 26th of September deadline. I think it is also worth reminding members and those watching that the decision on where Basildon is going to end up will not be made in this chamber, and it will not be made by any councillor or councillors from across the county of Essex. It is a decision that will be made in Whitehall by ministers. So we can make our case, we can fight for our borough, but the final call will sit with ministers. Mr. Mayor, let me turn to another issue that I am growing deeply concerned about, and that is a pattern of behaviour developing online, where some councillors seem to think that abusing officers is fair game. Councillors are not employees of this council. We are not members of staff, and the only person in this authority with the legal power to suspend, sack or investigate any officer outside of the 3 statutory officers is the head of paid service. Yet we now see elected members online purporting to have powers that they do not have, and publicly castigating junior officers who have no right of reply. That is not leadership, that is peacocking. And all it achieves is to demoralise and alienate hard-working staff who give their best to this borough. Our officers work around the clock for Basildon because they believe in this place. They are not political punchbags. So let me say very clearly tonight, Mr. Mayor, that so long as I am the leader of this council, I will back our officers every single time against vexatious, mendacious attacks from individuals more interested in Facebook likes than on serving the Basildon public. I will take the side of hard-working council officers over the terminally online Facebook trolls. It isn't scrutiny, it's stand-up, and it's not even funny. If an elected member has a genuine complaint to make about an officer, there are proper ways to do it, through the Chief Executive, through the police, through the local government association. But the public watching tonight need to understand this. Backbench opposition councillors playing tough guys on social media, spreading fake news and attacking officers and stakeholders are not taken seriously by me, by this administration, or frankly by the public either. Those councillors engaging in it, you can't sack officers, but you have clearly sacked off your election promises, and the public is noticing. Mr. Mayor, as all members in this chamber will be aware, on Friday night, Basildon made the national news, and not for the right reasons. What we saw occur at a parade of our shops on Whitmore Way was criminal damage, vandalism, and worse, outright racist abuse shouted at a mother and child who were visiting a shop on a Friday evening. That cannot be who we are. That is not the Basildon that I know, and it is precisely why this debate matters and is timely tonight. I am aware of the Conservative Party's newfound desire to close Asylum hotels, having opened more than 400 of them whilst they were in office. And we are here because we all saw the judgment on the Bell Hotel. That ruling means that we are now contemplating the prospect of more asylum seekers being dispersed out of that hotel and potentially from other hotels across Essex if other councils follow suit. Anyone in this chamber celebrating that decision on the Bell Hotel need to understand the risk that that ruling could have on Basildon's housing stock. Our already stretched family housing could be targeted once again by private landlords and contractors, undermining our communities and making an unfair situation even worse. For years, councils have tried and failed to get injunctions like this, and although this one was granted, there will be an appeal, and that will be heard either this week or early next week. That is why we have moved to quickly meet tonight, because what happens there will have consequences here. And I hope people can see from the motion that we will debate later that we are about to have a debate, and from the article that I published last night, that we are about to have a debate that is about more than just planning. It is about the temperature in our borough. And right now, the temperature is rising. Just today in Wat Tyler Park, our officers had to remove graffiti sprayed with the N-word. Our refuse crews were being abused today and threatened in the street because of false rumours about flag removals. Supposedly upstanding members of the community are on Facebook suggesting we reopen Nazi concentration camps to house people fleeing wars. Online, videos circulate peddling lies about asylum seekers sleeping in tents in our town centre or outside of our council offices. With every rumour, with every falsehood, tensions rise. We have a responsibility as councillors to de-escalate, not inflame, to lead, not to follow the mob, to put facts ahead of fake news. So I will argue in the motion that we debate in a moment that hotels and HMOs are not suitable accommodation. They are unfair on residents, they are unfair on asylum seekers, and they are financially unsustainable. But the answer to that is not division. It is not racist graffiti. It is not abuse of staff doing their jobs. I thank Councillor Barnes, the Leader of the Opposition, for joining me this weekend in calling out the racism and vandalism that we saw in our borough. The silence from the other leader of another political party in the borough was deafening. But we should be categoric. Flags don't give you permission to be racist. If you are racist in any way whatsoever, you should be reported to the police. If you think you can racially abuse a woman and a child in the street, you will be arrested. If you think you can vandalise council property, you will be nicked and you'll pay our costs for removal. This should be something upon which all 42 members of this council can unite. So yes, let's debate housing tonight. Yes, let's call out landlords exploiting the system. Yes, let's make our case to government. That is our job. But let's also remember our responsibility, which is to bring people together in a time of division, to lead with humanity, not hostility. This administration is unashamedly Basildon first, and that does mean that Basildon families come first in housing. It means calling out lies when they are told, and it also means standing up to racism wherever it shows its face. So as we get into this debate in a short while, Mr. Mayor, let us be robust, let us do it honestly, but let us also do it responsibly. Because if we as councillors cannot show leadership, compassion and calm at a time like this, then who will?
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Adele Brown.
Yeah, I'm getting old and blind, so glasses are going off. Most of you will know that because of my professional life as a teacher, I don't use social media whatsoever. It's a safeguarding concern that we as teachers do not engage in a way that we can engage with our pupils. So it's very unusual for me to comment on what has or has not been going on in Facebook. But I feel I need to use this opportunity in order to protect this council and protect the officers that endeavour to do what we ask them to do in a very professional way. I need to set the record straight by starting, sadly, referencing our Reform Group leader and the recent post that he's made concerning my planning officers. Our planning team are extremely professional in all they do. They do not deserve flippant comments that do not hold true to fact. I appreciate that you've never been in a classroom and therefore you don't understand that when a teacher speaks you need to be quiet. Those flippant comments have done a massive disservice to that planning team. Our planning officers are regarded as some of the best in the country. Several of them regularly go to other councils, ensuring that their planning teams are working as efficiently and as effectively as this council's planning team. They are exceptional officers who know how to run a planning department, but more, they also understand the law and the regulations that need to be followed in order for planning to have the credibility and legality that it needs. Councillor, you sit on that planning committee. You've had numerous hours of training from those dedicated officers. You know exactly what you're doing when you are trying to mislead the public. And that needs to stop. You know, the cynic in me would say you're trying to get yourself kicked off planning because you're too weak to make the decisions that are needed for this borough. You need to understand that the false statements you are making have huge implications for the credibility of this council as a whole, for the decisions that are made in those meetings, and for any judicial review that might come forward following that. It is vital...
Yes, okay. Sorry, Councillor Brown, if you could gesture through me there.
I apologise.
Thank you.
It is vital that you've considered the training that you've been given from our expert legal team on the things that you are saying, because you are putting this council in jeopardy, and it's not going to be stood for. So, apart from that, I apologise for... well, no, I don't apologise, actually. I'm a little bit, So I just want to clear up a few things that the planning team and the housing officers have been doing for the people of this borough that many of our councillors do not tell the public about. First of all, we are fully committed to ensuring that anyone, that our Basildon residents that need a home, have that security. For those who are watching the Cabinet in the last couple of months, you will have seen that that has been a huge focus for us. The importance of our Veterans Guarantee Scheme, which recognises the important service that us veterans have given this country and ensuring that they have the home and help and security that they need in this borough. We've launched a first-time buyer scheme. We want to back those young people and some of those older people. I am trying to still get one more kid out of my house.
People that live at home with their mum and dad.
Yeah, you know those...
Those 31-year-olds living at home with
well,
their
tell me about it. I've got one of them. In order to help those people buy their first home. We've looked at how we're going to improve the housing stock we've got, how we're going to act better as a landlord, how we're going to engage with our tenants to ensure that their homes are of the highest standard. We've looked at our tenants and leaseholder engagement strategy. We're going to spend 150 grand ensuring that those tenants understand that we as landlords are here for them and we want them to have the highest standard in their homes. These all show that from whatever angle you look at, this administration are perfectly serious about Basildon First, about homes being for the people here, and about ensuring that all the decisions we make are about fairness and about security, because we believe in this borough, and this is what you get from a Labour-led administration.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just 3 items. First off, it was very disappointing last week. I shan't be having to go at the gentleman sat over there. He was there with his colleague and many other councillors. We had a community safety day, pre-arranged with the police. I had a meeting with the district commander prior. All assurances given that they would seize, crash and recycle illegally ridden scooters through our town, and the illegal bikes, they're the ones that move at a pretty pace, not the assisted ones. I turned up just before members got there, which is very rare, me being there early, but must have been a blue moon that month. Hey-ho. And there was, as people there would have seen, there was our staff there doing a great job, other charities, groups like Neighbourhood Watch. There was a police van with 2 dogs in, great. There was armed police in the van, great. And 2 traffic cops in the car. So I thought, before you nice people turned up, when I saw an illegally ridden scooter by 2 hooded little darlings, to put it nicely, they would be the first ones to stop them, white caps. I mean, mile over the speed limit, they'll pull you. Anything misdemeanour, traffic cops will have you. They are feared by motorists, and it's not a dig, it's just, if you're a motorist, you're generally fearful. So I said to the traffic officer, excuse me, officer, could you stop them two on that scooter riding together on the same vehicle? He looked at me and went, we're not here for that. And after a conversation with the leader, it turned out that neither the traffic police, the armed police or dog police could stop someone on a scooter, but the officers that could stop people illegally riding through our town centre had to be sent to the Bell Hotel in Epping. You might say, fancy that, or Paul, the other one. But myself and the leader are out there challenging it. The leader's done a very good Facebook post, calling it out. We do support the police, but we are trying to regenerate our town centre, and when residents complain to us, particularly those who've got disability or elderly, and there's people driving through our town centre full speed, we're not joy killers. We're just trying to make sure the town centre's an attractive place. We all know about the Debenhams regeneration, which are expecting 200,000 patients a year. If you've just had day surgery for a cataracts, you do not want to be knocked over by a scooter. We are challenging it. The police could do it twice now for Southend, Season Crush, and they've done Rochford. What is their problem with Basildon? Yep. It needs to be done. That's such a key part of the regeneration of our town centre. It has to be safe and secure. My next item on announcements is this business with the flags, because there's a lot of fake news going out there about if you fly a flag from your property, you're going to get in trouble. If you're the freeholder and you own bricks and mortar, you do not need planning permission to fly any national flag. If you wish to fix it to a structure and you own your own flat and we're the freeholder, just please write to us, you know, because if you start drilling holes in walls, you could hurt yourself. So that's the official law, business and planning. As I say, you don't need planning permission for national flags. I did, when driving past Ashton, see this rather scruffy red flag next to the wonderful sea axis of Essex, but I'm a fair-minded person and I wouldn't want to be nasty and waste planning officers' time enforcing that. But everyone's entitled to their views and opinions. The third thing, Together for Safer Communities, is being launched in September, and that will roll out to 2 walls next month, Langdon Hills and Pitsea North West. We're working on other walls and the schedule. The crime kits have been ordered, so we'll have plenty of crime prevention items, but the main thrust will be to encourage mass membership of Neighbourhood Watch. It's so effective and so useful. It keeps our residents safe, and it keeps people comfortable where they live, and that's really important. And just to wrap up, because you get so many trolls, I'm not talking about anybody in this room, and I'm genuinely sincere when I say that, right? Because some people put it out there that, oh, they're not going to fly this flag, blah, 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 blah. Well, we're the first council in Essex that started it, if you exclude the county council, and we've been doing it ever since, and the party opposite, the Conservatives, have done it when we started it, and they've carried it on. On the 26th of October, we will be celebrating the patron saint of Essex with St Sed's Day by flying the sea axis. The county always not our friends, but we're proud to be Essex. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Have an announcement from the Chief Executive? No, thank you. Moving on to item number 5, notice of motion. No, number 4. Notice of motion. There's one urgent motion been moved, to be moved by Councillor Callaghan. Could you please confirm your seconder, please? Yeah. Councillor Brown. Okay, I call upon Councillor Callaghan to move the amendment. You have up to 10 minutes. Move your motion, sorry.
Thank you,
You have up to
Mr
10
Mayor.
minutes.
The motion before Council tonight is about compassion, yes, but it is also about standing up for ordinary families in Basildon who have been let down by a system of housing and asylum that the Conservatives and Nigel Farage created. It is about fairness for the people who built this community and call it home. Let's start with the facts. When Labour left office in May 2010, we had around 20,000 asylum seekers in the UK. When the Conservatives left office in July 2024, the number of asylum seekers in the UK had ballooned to 175,000. When Labour left office in 2010, there wasn't such a thing as an asylum hotel. They didn't exist. The Conservative Party procured and ran over 400 asylum hotels. Today, just 1 year into a Labour government, that number has halved and the total cost of hotel spending has reduced by £900 million. When Labour left office in May 2010, the Labour government was deporting around 20,000 asylum seekers with no right to remain. Under the Tories, the number of asylum seekers being deported dropped to 3,800, the lowest ever on record. In the last 12 months, the new Labour government has deported 38,000 asylum seekers with no right to remain, reduced the asylum backlog by 24%, and reduced legal migration by more than 120,000 people. Mr. Mayor, and this won't be universally popular, but a decade on, Brexit has been a disaster for the UK asylum seeker system. Before Brexit, small boat crossings did not exist. The UK had, through the Dublin Accord, the right to return any asylum seeker to the first safe EU country that they entered. By the time we left the EU, the UK had deported over 11,500 people under this convention to EU countries. That's more than a third of all those currently in hotels. Following Farage's Brexit, that right doesn't exist to the UK now. Turning to the situation locally, there is not a single hotel in the Basildon Borough being used to house asylum seekers. There is not a single Basildon Council house being used to house asylum seekers. And last year, it is true that the Home Office wanted 479 bed spaces through Clear Springs to use for asylum seeker accommodation. And today, there are 319 asylum seekers in our borough. That equates to 0.2% of the total population of the Basildon Borough. Those are the facts. They may contravene conventional wisdom on GB News and Fakebook, but they are incontrovertible facts. Now, Mr. Mayor, the Labour government, in my view, has rightly made this a central policy issue. After the cost of living crisis, this is ranking as the most important issue to people, even ahead of the National Health Service. I am not blind to the feeling it has caused in our communities, hence we tabled this detailed motion tonight. As I have explained to the Home Secretary's staff, companies like Clear Springs are charlatans who should be sacked and never allowed to operate for the Home Office ever again. Because of their practices, working-class Basildon families have been evicted from their family homes. Streets have been destabilised, and ordinary people in this borough who never asked for wars in faraway lands have found themselves losing homes to an asylum system that is broken and unfair. This council and our borough has shown time and again that our residents are compassionate. Over decades, Basildon has welcomed people fleeing persecution and war. But we must balance compassion with fairness. And right now, the system is neither fair to asylum seekers, but more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, nor is it fair to Basildon residents. Hotels and HMOs are simply the wrong places to house people. We all know it. They lack the space, the stability, and the dignities that families and vulnerable people deserve. They also put intolerable pressure on our communities. Parking wars, noise, rubbish, antisocial behaviour, pressure on local schools and GPs, and worst of all, they take desperately needed family housing away from local people. One option that is open to the council is to seek the implementation of an Article 4 stop notice on future developments of HMOs. One of the key legal criteria for introducing an Article 4 stop notice is evidence of over-concentration of HMOs in a particular area, where the balance of housing is being distorted, family homes are being lost, and pressure is placed on local services and infrastructure. It is not enough to come here tonight and to simply say that we don't like HMOs. The council must be able to demonstrate through robust data and evidence that their spread is causing material harm to the character and sustainability of a community. That is why the council is progressing carefully with the implementation of a private landlord licensing scheme, which was considered by Cabinet in the spring and which will be coming back to Cabinet in a couple of weeks' time. As part of this process, we have carried out the first ever comprehensive review of the typology of our private rented housing markets across the borough. This has given us the evidence base we need not only to introduce a licensing model that will raise standards in the private rented sector, but also to underpin lawful applications for Article 4 stop notices where they are justified. I can confirm to Council tonight that the evidence shows that some wards now meet the threshold for an Article 4 stop notice, and the Council will be applying for this. However, it does not support applying this across all 14 wards, as some of the wards in our borough have no HMOs at all. Next week, alongside Councillors Smith and Brown, we will launch the HMO Task Force, enabling members of the public to report any property they believe is being unlawfully used as a HMO. We will also be working closely with our ASB teams and waste crews to identify suspect properties. Our enforcement teams will be out on site following up on these reports, and I will be allocating additional funding to strengthen this work. As I said to the government, they have inherited an almighty mess following the last government's open-door immigration policy and the disastrous handling of Brexit. But Basildon has now done more than its fair share. Mr. Mayor, I'm not just standing here tonight giving speeches or amongst the ranks of the terminally online. Instead, I have been taking Basildon's concerns to the very heart of government. Just last Friday, I sat down again with the National Security Minister and special advisors in the Home Office, and I told them exactly what was happening here. I followed that up with a meeting with the Director of Local Government in Number 10, and I made it clear that time and again, HMOs in Basildon must not be used as the dumping ground of the Home Office. I will continue to lobby, I will continue to push, and I will not stop until fairness is restored for this borough. Now, I know that some will try to present this debate between compassion and cruelty. I don't agree with that. That is wrong. I think the motion that we debate tonight makes clear that we can and we must have both compassion and fairness. So whilst applying for an injunction on an asylum hotel that doesn't exist would be a meaningless and irrelevant exercise, the issue of HMOs is one that we need to understand. Right now, we have Clear Springs whispering into the ears of private landlords, evict that family, clear that house, we'll pay you more money. And the landlords listen. From £20,000 a year rent to £60,000 a year rent. And yet families who've lived in those homes for 10, 15 years, raising their kids, paying their rent on time, building lives in our communities, they are being told to pack up and get out. That is not a business model, that is legalised exploitation. And imagine what it does to a street. When a landlord chooses cash over compassion, it is the neighbours who always pick up the price. The family of 4 or 5 that have been rooted here for a decade, suddenly finding themselves homeless. They turn up at the council desperate, and due to a lack of family housing options in our borough, we are forced to put them into temporary accommodation, often in a single hotel room, miles from the schools, jobs and support networks they know. And as they lose their home, they watch it handed over to a contractor who crams in 6, 7, 8 men who've just come off a small boat and are awaiting an asylum decision. If that doesn't make your blood boil, then I don't know what will, because it is not fair, and it is not just unfair, it is obscene. Our working class neighbours did not choose these wars. They did not ask for bombs to fall on Khartoum or Kabul. Yet somehow they are the ones losing their homes in Basildon. I am probably the only member in this chamber who has spent time in the last couple of years in Sudan, in Ethiopia and in Egypt, working on human trafficking and people smuggling projects. I have seen horrors that most people here thankfully never will. I understand why people flee. And no councillor in this room, if faced with your son being forced into child soldiering or your daughter being sold into prostitution, would fail to make the same decision those people make. That deserves compassion and humanity. But compassion abroad cannot come at the expense of fairness at home. And Mr. Mayor, if politics is to choose, this council chooses the Basildon working classes. It is a Basildon first approach with this administration. And we shouldn't forget that Clear Springs are not sharing the load equally in our borough. These contracts aren't tearing through leafy wards north of the A127. They are ripping the heart out of Labour communities, communities already living with job insecurity, deprivation and crumbling public services. It is ripping the heart out of communities that were built for families, not for profiteers. So, Mr. Mayor, I get it. I understand it. I believe the government is right to close hotels. It is right to speed up asylum decisions, and it is right that where deportations are necessary, they should happen and quickly. But none of that will mean a thing if at the same time we allow our own working class families to be thrown out of their homes so that properties can be carved into HMOs for asylum seekers. It is immoral, it is indefensible, and it must stop. I am convinced from my conversations that ministers understand this and are supportive of that position. Because every day this unfair situation continues with private companies profiting off the human misery at the expense of British families, then we are risking squandering and surrendering our communities to the extremists who are weaponising this crisis for their own ugly political ends. So tonight, let's send a united message. Basildon has done its bit. We will not let cynical profiteering tear apart the communities our parents and our grandparents built. We will continue to be compassionate, but we will also demand fairness. Support this motion, colleagues, and let's show our residents that this is a council that is on their side.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Brown.
You know, many of us throughout this whole chamber have a family history that means we weren't all born where we are right now, that we have a history, whether it was my great-grandmother that fled Nazi Germany, my grandparents that decided they wanted a better life that Ireland couldn't offer them, or way back some of my ancestors that left Ireland during the famine were looking for a better life. This motion tonight isn't about that. It isn't about the rights and the wrongs of people being able to say, where I'm living now is dangerous, where I'm living now is not right for my family. That is a discussion for another night. The thing that we're talking about tonight starts around the facts. As a teacher, I tell my students all the time, you can't possibly put forward a decent argument if you don't know the facts and you don't understand how to interpret them. We're going to hear, I'm sure, a lot tonight that wavers away from the facts and from people who definitely don't know how to interpret them. So I want to start by just reminding you some of the things that the leader had just said. In Basildon, we all know we do not have a single asylum hotel. We do not have a single council home that is presently being occupied by an asylum seeker, either individual or family. Those are the facts. Every council home in this borough goes to Basildon people. You need to have lived here for 7 years to enter our housing list. We definitely put those Basildon residents first. And that's the truth. They are the facts. But we do have a problem with HMOs. That is also a fact. And that's why my housing officers started to look at this way back in the spring when we first brought that to council as an issue, and why they are continuing to work on that today. On paper, that 0.2% of our population sounds relatively small. But when we look at the impact it's having in certain areas of our borough, it is not small. Landlords continue to evict families. As Lead has said, why would you want a profit of 20,000 when you can have a profit of 60,000? This is the housing market broken in our borough and not serving the residents it should. It's not fair, and what's more, it's not sustainable, because those families then end up on our door needing temporary accommodation because they are homeless. And that is something that we all know, that rising cost is really affecting this council and the way in which we can serve all of our residents. But we also know this problem was not created in Basildon. This is not a new problem that we've just woken up to. This is not a problem that the leader has caused, or even the previous leader, Andy Baggott, although he wasn't perfect, let's face it. We know that this is a crisis that the Conservatives, over numerous years, through deliberate political decisions, has caused. They outsourced housing contracts to companies who put profit before people.
Shame.
They let the asylum backlog explode, refusing to look at those applications and process them in the correct way. And while they were failing to sort this all out, they opened over 400 new asylum hotels, places that we know are not right for communities and not right for those who had to live there. This is their record, and this is their mess. Here in Basildon, we're trying to pick up those pieces as a council and try and do what is right for the people of Basildon. We're trying to find temporary homes for those families who are turfed out of their homes. We're trying to ensure that those streets that have changed in terms of what parking they need, refuse collection, all of those things, that we are looking at those needs and seeing what we can do. But I think we also need to remember that the leader talked a little bit about this from the beginning. You know, you can all tell from my voice, I did not grow up in Basildon. I grew up in Yorkshire. I'm from Bradford. And I know exactly what can happen when people start to look at fairness in a different way and start to use hate as a remedy to fix things. I've lived through numerous race riots in my hometown. The BNP grew there and flourished. All it brought was riots and division. It did not solve the problems of Bradford, and it never can. Fairness might not be being handled historically nationally, but it is now. And here in Basildon, tonight, this motion matters. It says Basildon has already done more than its share. It calls out landlords who are profiteering whilst families pay the price. And it says clearly, yes, we want to show compassion to those people, but never at the expense of all our local families and what this borough deserves. It's a balanced approach. That's the Labour approach, and it's the right approach for Basildon. Councillors, I would urge all of you to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. The matter is now open for debate. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to propose an amendment.
Okay, we'll circulate the amendment. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Mordecai. Thank you. Okay, if members listen, please, we're going to have 3 minutes in which to discuss and look at this amendment. Okay, so everyone understands it thoroughly, and then I'll reconvene. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. We'll reconvene. Councillor Jeffrey, you move your amendment. You have 10 minutes, I think. But yes, over to you. 5. 5, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We are proposing this amendment to make the motion stronger and safer for residents. This amendment covers both hotels and HMOs that could be used in the borough. As currently drafted, the motion only considers HMOs in use, but a key point being missed is that hotels too can be used by the Home Office. It's all very well to ask the Chief Executive to send strongly worded letters to hotel owners, but residents across the borough deserve more reassurance than that. The national picture shows why this matters. As of the 20th of August, 27,997 migrants have crossed the channel in small boats this year, up from the same period in 2024. Despite all the promises to smash the gangs, they remain unsmashed. In the year to June 2025, the Labour government managed to return just 2,330 people who arrived this way. That's 7% fewer than the year before. Those are the Home Office figures. When central government is failing so badly, it falls to local councils to be prepared. Other parties control councils, and only a Conservative-led council has been able to get the necessary action to move this issue forward. It didn't happen under Labour, and it didn't happen under the leadership of Reform. Both of these parties have had the chance to act, but only the Conservatives show we can deliver. But this is ultimately about fairness. Fairness for our residents, who should not have decisions imposed on them without local accountability. fairness for communities who deserve to be properly consulted and supported, not left picking up the pieces of a failed national system under this Labour government. I'm not sure you're entirely convinced Labour are doing a good job. And fairness for councils who should have the right to shape planning policies to reflect the interests of people they represent, not being bypassed by the Home Office. And that is why this amendment is so important. It allows us to address potential issues before they arise. Rather than reacting after the fact, it makes clear that we are prepared to change planning policies, if necessary, to protect local communities and decision making. We should be seeking advice from Epping Forest. That is not a sign of weakness, it's an opportunity to ensure that we are putting residents first. This amendment is reasonable. It ensures the council can learn from best practices and make crystal clear to officers what the position of full council is. We will use all options available to protect our communities and uphold local democratic decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Mordecai, just a second, yeah? Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. The use of hotels for asylum accommodation is a significant concern, directly impacting the community. The anxiety, frustration and legitimate concerns many residents have voiced are acknowledged. This is a complex issue, and the impact on local communities is both complex and real. The effects can be seen in several ways. Strain on local services, health, education and social services are designed for the existing population. Unplanned, large-scale demand risks stretching them to breaking point. Increased community tension is deeply concerning. It is vital to address underlying pressures and not allow division. The fear of crime was highlighted by Mr Justice Eyre in his judgment at paragraphs 20, 75, 77, 78, 82, 109 and 117. There is a significant financial cost with the use of hotels. It is expensive, inefficient and paid for by taxpayers, in effect the people in this borough. The cost to house a single person in a hotel has been shown to be substantially higher than in long-term dispersal accommodation. The policy changes that are being proposed is that the council should be taking a proactive stance rooted in legal precedents and common sense. First, there needs to be a focus on planning regulations. Using a hotel for long-term asylum accommodation is a material change of use that requires proper planning permission. The recent High Court injunction obtained by Epping Forest District Council demonstrates a strong legal argument, and I accept that it is subject to review next Thursday at the appeal courts. Their success, however, underscores the principle that local planning control is essential in managing resources and future development. The Labour government are actually appealing not against the actual judgment, but the fact they weren't allowed to intervene. Second, there is an intention to emphasise legal enforcement. Following Epping's example, the council must use its legal powers to uphold planning policies. A legally grounded injunction is a legitimate and necessary tool for enforcing planning control and preventing uses contrary to local policy. Third, there is an advocacy for better alternatives. Using hotels is inefficient, inappropriate for housing asylum seekers. This approach does not help with legitimate resettlement. The administration has already accepted that hotels are not the most suitable place for vulnerable individuals and families who often have complex needs arising from trauma. This is about accountability, legality, and finding a more effective, humane solution for everyone. The position is clear. The current practice must end and all legal powers should be used to ensure the community's needs are prioritised and respected. This proactive approach will continue for the benefit of all residents in the borough. Please support the motion as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mordecai. Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a very serious issue that we are debating this evening. We're not here to put the blame on others. We are not here to be ignorant to others. but we are here to try to resolve a situation that is concerning many, many people over this whole country. I fully support Councillor Jeffrey's amendment as it deals with the issue that's causing concern to many people in this country by providing hotel accommodation to people who have crossed the Channel in small boats. I applaud Conservative-run Epping Forest Council for standing by their residents and challenging the Home Office. Their success has meant many other councils will follow suit and hopefully gain the same success. The government have ignored the feelings within local communities and the changes in their dynamics and the pressures on local services. By doing so, it has created civil unrest. The country must abide by the same laws, and the government must look carefully at what the law states and keep within the law. I stand up for the people of Basildon and fully agree with the amendment to prohibit the use of hotels and the HMOs as accommodation for asylum seekers and illegal migrants, and for the council's legal and planning services to prevent such use. My ward has a hotel in very close proximity, and residents are very anxious that the same could happen in this hotel. The message is loud and the message is clear. Immediate action must be taken before the situation gets more worse than it already is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you to Councillor Sargent. Are there any other indications to speak? Councillor Callaghan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I begin by congratulating Councillor Jeffrey, who has taken the seat of the soon-to-be leader of Reform UK, Councillor Phil Turner, down here on the front row, making his bid to be the next leader. I enjoyed his contribution. And to Councillor Mordecai, who looks like he's had a lovely holiday. He said in his contribution that this needs to be rooted in legal precedents, and I agree. The problem is there is no legal precedence to gain an injunction on something that doesn't exist. And that's the problem that we have here. And sorry to jump around slightly, but I don't agree with him that dispersal into HMOs or into family homes in communities is a safer thing to do in terms of intelligence or whatever it might be than having people in hotels. But I would also point out that hotel applications for injunctions, as Councillor Sargent has just talked about, this is not new. When the Conservative Party began procuring 400 asylum hotels across the country, remember there wasn't a single one of them until the Tories procured 400 of them, but when they did that, councils began applying for these injunctions. Great Yarmouth applied, Blackpool applied, lots of councils around the country applied, and none of them have been successful. And what the injunction at Epping was an interim injunction. It was essentially the judge saying, I don't want to make the decision, I'm going to kick this down the can down the road. And that's either for him to be able to think about it a bit more if he gets the case, or for him to give this to another judge and allow that judge to determine. So I don't think that we should necessarily be going off to Epping Forest to ask them if we can mark their homework and see what they've been up to. It's good to see we're bringing in more fans in case the temperature's a bit too warm for some people in the room tonight. The other thing that I would say is that, and I understand why the Tories have done this tonight, their motion fell under the weight of incompetence when it came to submitting their full motion tonight. But we do not have any hotels in the borough. If we were to pass this tonight, particularly where it says amend planning policy, do I take it from that then that the Conservative group here tonight are planning to support the local plan? Because the planning officers, if you want photos of me, Council, I can send you some, that's fine, don't worry about it. You can take some photos of me, it's fine, I'll send you some photos. I know I live rent-free in your head, I will be more than happy to send you photos. I'm flattered, but I'm also married. But Mr. Mayor, coming back to the issues at hand this evening, we have got no hotels that are asylum hotels in our borough. So therefore, it is not possible in law to proactively try to get an injunction on something that doesn't exist. So we are being asked tonight to do something that doesn't exist. They are asking for us to approve planning policy that will come forward in Regulation 18.3 consultation. These guys have never voted for a local plan. They would want to rescind the local plan the minute that they could, and yet here they are tonight telling us that what we should be doing is putting planning policies in that they want to see. So do I take it when they come back, as I hope one of them is going to come back and speak after me, that they might confirm, are they going to support the local plan if in Regulation 18.3 this policy is in it? Because Councillor Brown is already working on looking at what we can do around HMOs and hotels as well. But the thing that I would just say is that, as always in politics, there are the laws of unintended consequences. And the reason why my side of the chamber tonight cannot support this amendment, and I take sympathy with what they're trying to do. We all want to see HMOs and hotels prohibited for this use, but we don't have the legal powers to be able to do it because we don't have any in the borough, and we don't need a policy to be able to do that. The minute anybody decided to try and do it, we could make legal moves ourselves without council having to opine on it. But I can't support this in good conscience because of the knock-on impact this will have on temporary accommodation. So to pass this tonight and to put this planning application through, we would be saying one particular hotel that we use in this borough for temporary accommodation that we would have to boot people out, and we would not be able to do that. There is nothing in this amendment tonight about the financial mitigations there. You would be putting a six-figure black hole into the council's budget when it comes to temporary accommodation if you pass this evening. So as I say, I have sympathy for what they are trying to do, but I cannot support something that is going to have that knock-on impact onto temporary accommodation. So I would urge them to go away, think again, and come back. Or, better still, vote for the local plan, because it's going to be in there anyway. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and no one has read out the amendment in its detail, so anyone watching would be thinking Labour can't support a Conservative thing and the Conservatives possibly can't support a Labour thing. We see it in Parliament. Councillor Blake, I didn't suggest you said that. I didn't say any member of the Conservative group. But if you watch Parliament, if Keir Starmer says it's black, Kemi Badenoch says it's white. And we've seen it with past and present leaders of the two main parties. So I just would like to give some clarification for people watching through the chair to Councillor Blake. Now, the Conservative amendment reads out, and it sounds very good until you get some legal advice. And it says, amend its planning policy, it should really be the council's planning policy, to be clear, to clarify that use of hotels for long-term accommodation of asylum seekers, that part I'd vote for, no problem. But then you go on. Other non-paying residents constitute a material change of use, ensuring all updates to policy are compliant with legal requirements. Now, if you didn't ask any details about the pitfalls, you'd be shooting the council's finances right in the foot. Now, how many times have I stood here? How many times has Councillor Callaghan stood here? How many times has Councillor Brown recently stood here and said that the cost of temporary accommodation per family is £25,000 a year? What was that £25,000 about? Did the Conservatives believe that every family in temporary accommodation and a hotel was paying rent to the council? No. We, the council, was paying the cost of the hotel. So if this amendment was to pass, so there's the potential, I don't see it happening, but there's the potential, the aspiration, the hope, the demand, the campaign to protect our hotels from asylum seekers. And now you want non-paying residents, so that's our HMO people. Our temporary accommodation people. So these hotels that have had block bookings, they've been set up for a business model of taking in block bookings, the whole hotel's used, and what would they do? They have a business to pay, they have business rates to pay, bills to pay to the council. So they just go, hello, is this Newham Council? You've got some people in temporary accommodation? You do. Right, get them down here. So, as I started this speech off tonight, The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and with respect through the chair to Councillor Jeffries, that is what he has done today. He has come here with good intentions. I don't disagree. But it will lead us to hell, because if this was to pass this amendment, our hotels that are doing block bookings for temporary accommodation will lose their business model, and then they will phone up the London boroughs, because the London boroughs are being crucified. I think we've got problems. They are being crucified to the cross for the cost of temporary accommodation, and they will take our hotels if this amendment passes. So respectfully, I will be voting for that. But I will say to my Conservative colleagues here tonight, you'll be going to party conference. I will give for gratis a policy that will make you popular. Don't look to Farage. That's like watching an episode of bad episode of Minder. Look to Trump. What would Trump do? What would Trump do? 1,000% tariff on all French goods that attract VAT. It's their boulders. Instead of the French army slapping suntan lotion under their armpits, which they seem historically to be good at, they should be protecting their own boulders, and the boats shouldn't be coming to this country. That's the crux of this issue. Our so-called friends across the channel cannot police their own boulders, and that is what's causing all this tension in this country. So go to your Tory conference next month and say, Kemi, take a leaf out of Trump book. You've done it with Mexico and Canada. Tariff the living daylights out the French. Put Britain first again. That would be the secret, and you might jump up in the polls. But that's gratis, and I don't expect any peerages just for it to happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. There being no further speakers on the amendment, I will put that to the vote. The amendment is in front of you. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Are there any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, thank you. That is that amendment has fallen. 23 against, 15 for. Thank you. Now, moving on to the substantive. Please indicate for the substantive. Oh, Councillor Journet.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment, please, seconded by Kevin Blake. Thank you.
Seconded by Kevin Blake. Thank you. Could it please be circulated? Thank you very much. Thank you. Returning to the debate on the amendment, Councillor Jornay, would you like to present your amendment? You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you
Just
very much.
reference, sorry everyone, this is Councillor Jornay's maiden speech. Thank you.
Well, the next part will be, yeah. So, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm moving this amendment today because residents are demanding real action. Not just warm words from the leader of the council on the misuse of our family homes and local accommodation for asylum contracts. So, the following amendment states that this council resolves to begin the immediate process to implement Article 4 directions to remove permitted development rights that currently allow the conversion of family homes into small HMOs without planning consent, subject to evidence. As we know, the leader of the council has already announced today that he has a HMO task force, so not backing this particular amendment would obviously be going against exactly what he said at the very beginning of this debate. Secondly, subject to the implementation of Article 4 directive, this will require all such conversions to be subject to full planning applications moving forward. So there is no automatic right to a HMO. Secondly, an audit to enforce against unlawful use. So we will carry out a full audit of all properties in Basildon used by the Home Office or its contractors for asylum accommodation. And where breaches of planning or licensing rules are found, we take appropriate steps and measures to remedy, including up to enforcement injunctions where required. This amendment does 3 simple things. Firstly, it protects our family homes by starting the Article 4 process so the landlords can't just flip-flop them into HMOs without planning consent. That means residents have a say, and we can say no where streets are already under pressure. Second, it brings transparency. We will audit every single property in the Home Office and its contractors that are being used in Basildon to enforce against breaches and publish a monthly report so residents can see exactly what action is being taken. And thirdly, it adds teeth. Hotels cannot be turned into migrant hostels, and if there are breaches, our legal team will be instructed to seek injunctions immediately, just as has already been happened successfully in Epping. This is a balanced, deliverable package that protects family homes, keeps hotels in community use, and gives residents the confidence that Basildon Council is on their side. And I move this amendment and ask colleagues across the chamber to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jornay. Councillor Blake. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll keep this reasonably short, but just before I talk about the amendment, just want to clarify a few things that have been mentioned tonight. Councillor Callahan quite rightly said that some of the disgraceful things that have happened for our borough regarding what's been named daubing walls with paint and whatnot, absolutely disgusting. However, let's be absolutely blunt about this. That is a minority, a very, very small minority that are spoiling it for the rest of them. Okay? The seeing of the flags and everything like that, I absolutely support 100%. But seeing some of the things, exactly, some of the things that have been happening are wrong. It's not a racist flag. It's my flag. It's your flag, and we should all be proud of that. It's something that we should all be proud of, and not just for St George's Day, but actually 365 days a year, as far as I'm concerned. So we need to be careful of that. One of the other things that someone said, it's not about the fear this day. I think it was Adele said, it's not about the fears today. We're not talking about that. It is about the fear. It is about the fear of the women and the children. That's what it's all about. That's where it's stemming from. That's what's happening. The people out there are protesting against these hotels, etc., purely on the basis of what's happening to their fear of their children and their mothers. That's a fact. That's the fact. It's not the.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Just a moment. Thank you. Let's not turn this into playground politics. We'll respectfully listen and have your turn to respond when it is your turn. Thank you, Councillor Blake.
So it's not that. It's our flag. It's my flag, and I'll be proud of it to the day I die, and so should everybody else. One of the other things, there's been a lot of criticism when you're standing up. Well, actually, your motion tonight, I've actually got no problem with it. I've absolutely no problem with it. And you know, the reality of it is you go into the attack of saying the Conservative government. Yeah, well, I'd make no bones about it. I don't think anybody on this side would actually say we never made a huge mistake when it comes to it. We should have come out of the ECHR ages ago. Absolutely, thank you. Yes, absolutely, we should have come out of it, and we will. I'm pretty certain we'll bring a policy in that would do that. So that's. And as for the smashing of the gangs, we've heard all this is down, this is down, this is down. The people out there do not believe a word of that. Nobody believes a word of it. The gangs are coming over more and quicker than ever before, and you're doing nothing about it. It's an absolute disgrace what your government are doing. I actually agree with this, 100% support this. The planning consent should have been for HMOs to have it. Absolutely been categorical about that. I got out one right near me, and I couldn't believe when I saw this going, a HMO going up. Well, surely they got our planning permission out. So I went to the council offices. No, they don't have to have it. So all those extra cars that are coming into that area, first of all, you've got planning permission. You've got control. You've got control of the landlord. You've got control of the people going in there to make sure they've got the regulations. So it should be good. It's easier to enforce. Again, as Sam said, you've also got the issue. Yeah, you've also got the issue but the residents in that area can have their say. We're not always going along with it. You know, it'd be interesting to see whether they actually come to a planning committee that's done by an officer and the chairman of planning. That'd be one issue that would be really a bit concerning. But it holds landlords to account. Okay, and one other thing is, when you're doing this, well, how many times when you're doing a HMO do we know how many people are going in there and what the density? We always go to planning, what's the density of the area, what's that? It's increasing all the time. Around where I am, there are a few going up there now, and you can see it by the amount of cars going in there. And I worry about the actual size of the buildings that they're actually going into and what they're living in, whether they're going in some sort of squalor or something like that. So it all needs to be accountable. So I 100% support this. But let's perhaps be clear. It is about what's happening to our people in this country today, and we should stand up and be accountable for that. We should fight for what we believe in. And I honestly believe that we have got to get control of the illegal asylum seekers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Do I have any speakers on this amendment? Okay, thank you. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to interrupt that bromance, to be honest, that was taking place. I know that the mask has fully slipped. Normally it's when Councillor Turner says jump, Councillor Janet says how high, and now it's Councillor Blake who is auditioning to be the leader of Reform UK. I am told defections are imminent. I am told that it won't be long before there is a new leader of Reform UK in Basildon. It's either going to be Councillor Blake or Councillor Turner. So we wait with bated breath to see which one it is going to be. Can I congratulate Councillor Janet on making his maid... Don't heckle me, I'm not a vicar.
He's saying my name right.
I am aware that he's made his maiden speech, and I congratulate him for dedicating all 5 minutes of it to supporting Labour policy. And for saying on the record, publicly and clearly for everybody to see tonight, that when it comes to the issue around HMOs, when it comes to the issue around Article 4s, when it comes to the issue around enforcement and audit, he is supporting what the administration set in train back in the spring, and we will be bringing to Cabinet on the 11th of September. So I thank him for that. It took seconds for him to mention me in that speech. So I think I lost a bet, actually, because some of us thought I might actually be on the first line of his speech. So I was a bit disappointed to only be in the second line. He said, which I think was a crucial line, he said around streets under pressure. And I agree that there are streets under pressure, hence why we are looking at the at the Article 4 notices. What is critical is, as Councillor Smith was explaining before we began the debate, that it is around evidence and having the evidence. We cannot immediately implement an Article 4 across all 14 wards of the borough. You have to follow the evidence. And I just very gently say to colleagues who represent Billericay and Wickford seats on this council that voting for this tonight and supporting it, I am all in favour of it, because in my ward of St Martin's and in the wards that my councillors cover south of the 127, I know that we have an over-concentration of HMOs and an Article 4 will happen, but that is not the case in Wickford and Billericay. And therefore, if you vote for this tonight, what you are doing is saying to your residents and to the Home Office that it is open season on your wards for them to come and use your wards to be HMOs. You can shake your head, but that is the reality. Again, I come back to it. The laws of unintended consequences when you are trying to pass motions at a council. This is a council, it's not a pub. So if you understand that, then you will understand that you are putting a target on the backs of Billericay and Wickford wards. Now, you may not be comfortable with that. Others will think that that is fine. In terms of Councillor Blake, I just want to address a couple of points there. He talked about HMO policy. Well, if only we had a bloody local plan. If only we had a local plan, we would have actually been able to have adopted this policy, and if only he had been on this council for the last 25 years with the ability to actually pass it, wouldn't that have been amazing? It's also interesting to me that he comes on here to preach about protection of women and girls and all the rest of it. He had absolutely nothing to say last week when a Billericay head teacher was convicted of raping a 13-year-old girl. Right? He says he doesn't know anything about it, right? A Billericay councillor that doesn't know anything about what happened in a Billericay school. Right? So it's that contrast that we see between people trying to stir things up for their own political gain, and as I said in my opening, weaponising these issues, but not being able to provide that balance as well. And I credit the leader of the Conservative Party because he actually did comment on social media about that case, and he condemned it as well. Honestly, stop clapping, because by the end of the night he might be the only Tory left and he might have to come over here. So it might be too much for him. I would just point out, I'll talk more about this a little bit later on, but this thing about leaving the ECHR, the idea that these charlatans could renegotiate the Good Friday Agreement, or that is a good idea to reopen the Good Friday Agreement, and the clue is in my surname. I'm fully aware of the troubles and what happened in Northern Ireland, and to suggest that you might be in a position to renegotiate that after the botched Brexit deal that you guys negotiated and the failure that you've presided over when it comes to things like asylum seekers, that you're going to be able to negotiate that. And the very, very final thing, Mr. Mayor, that I would say to Councillor Blake, and I say this because I like him and I want to protect his health. Stop watching GB News unless I'm on it.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Okay, Councillor Brockman.
Well, you all knew I was going to get in on the act, didn't you? Right. This isn't about politics, really, is it? Come on. Let's not all keep going on at each other across the room and all that. And it's not about grandstanding. This is about protecting our residents. Right? They need homes. We look after our people first. And that is what's important in this chamber tonight. And we should all be trying to get along and vote for the right thing at the right time. And really and truthfully, I gave out a good barbecue for this tonight, and I'm really fed up. I could have taken you with me, couldn't I? So, shall we all just get on with it and stop the hotels and the HMOs being done? And also make sure that our residents have got access to homes first, not other people. I will say this, I know that there's places in the borough that are renting out garages to illegals. There's people with cabins in their gardens who are renting out things, and the failure's going on there. It's not being dealt with. So, and Councillor Callaghan and Councillor Blake both said it's about women and families. So please, let's just get on and deal with it. Oh, and by the way, I've got a challenge here. 5-1, Kevin. I've got you. You failed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockman. Councillor McGarren.
Thank you. I suppose convention does sort of dictate that I should congratulate Councillor Journey on his maiden speech.
Yeah.
He did actually promise fireworks, but actually that was one of the dampest squibs I've ever experienced. You had 5 minutes, you used about 1. So that was good going. You promised real action. Councillor Journey, you wouldn't know real action or the truth if it hit you in the face with a frying pan, quite frankly. You say that you're out to protect family homes, but your amendment doesn't do that. It singularly fails to do that. Councillor Callaghan has explained to you in words that hopefully even you can understand. I'm not sure, but hopefully you can. You say it's balanced and deliverable. No, it isn't balanced and deliverable at all. And actually the second part of the amendment we're doing anyway. So if you were paying attention, you would know that. And Councillor Blake, I've got a bit more respect for you. You should definitely know that. And, you know, this bromance with Councillor Journey, I'm sorry, Councillor Blake, you really want to give your head a bit of a wobble on that one, because it's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. Councillor Barnes, I feel for you. I genuinely feel for you. You've got a rabble of a group, you're doing your best, but it's a disgrace. Half of them are going to defect, and then if you want to come over here, you can. We can sort that out. But, you know, you've got a chief whip there who's supporting a reform amendment. How do you feel about that, Councillor Barnes? How do you really feel about that? Huh? How do you feel about
Through the
fact
chair,
that your
please, Councillor.
Conservative group is supporting someone who has made appalling statements on social media? How do you feel about that? Because I know how I would feel if it was the other way around. Councillor Journey, yet again, you had nothing to say about the events of last Friday. You had a perfect opportunity to set your stall and to say, condemn it in the most unequivocal terms. You said nothing about it. You said nothing about racist abuse. You said nothing about a mother and a child being racially abused. And you said nothing about racist graffiti. Your silence speaks volumes, Councillor Journey. Councillor Blake, dog whistle politics of the lowest order, I'm afraid. Dog whistle politics of the lowest order. You're talking about the fear of women and children. You're talking about facts. You didn't produce one fact. Where are the statistics that suggest that asylum seekers are disproportionately committing crimes, and particularly committing crimes against women? Where are the statistics? You provide the statistics, and I'll listen to them.
Thank you, councillors.
You have not provided any such statistics.
Councillor McGarren, hold on a moment. Thank you. Take your seat. We'll not be shouting out across the chambers, okay? We don't do that in the council chamber. Remember, the public are watching, and they want us to debate. We're civilised. Councillor McGarren, please can you stick to the amendment and finish off in the next 1 minute 50 seconds. Thank you.
Interrupted me, but anyway. I hear nothing from Councillor Blake, nothing from Councillor Journey, nothing from the right generally about child sex gangs when the perpetrators are white, which is usually the case. Statistically, that is a fact. Why are you not condemning that? I'm condemning that. Any crime against a child, any sex crime against a child, deserves utter condemnation. Why are you silent on that?
We know who they are. Don't know what these people are.
So that makes it okay.
Councillor Journey, please do not shout out across the chamber. Thank you. Nobody else's. Thank you.
How much gear is there?
So, through the chair, the leader explained earlier on that in terms of the population of Basildon, 0.2% are asylum seekers. Now, I'm not saying, therefore, that doesn't matter. It does matter, because what we also know is that it's disproportionate in certain areas. But again, as Councillor Callaghan has explained, the law of unintended consequences. By supporting this amendment, you would be pushing HMOs into Billericay, Wickford, etc. Now, if you want to do that, that's your call. That's your call, if that's what you want to do. But that is the consequences of that. And like I say, I'm not saying HMOs don't matter, they do. We've got an administration that's on the front foot on that already doing stuff. But what I would say is, again, let's stick to the facts. So in terms of asylum seekers per head of population in Europe, the UK is 17th. 17th. So let's stop kowtowing to the grifter that's Nigel Farage, his mates in the right-wing media, and the fellow travellers in the Conservative Party. Traitors.
Okay, thank you. We will continue when we have silence. Thank you. Right. Councillor Smith, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As long said, and now for something completely different, respectfully to my colleague. I'm very happy to support this amendment. Prior to this amendment being tabled, we had this lengthy delay in consultation with the leader, who holds the Cabinet brief for Finance, and my colleague, Councillor Dale Brown, who's got the responsibility for planning. That had that motion amendment passed in the exact words, we could face judicial review. So I spoke with Councillor Genet, and he was happy to add 3 words, subject to evidence, so we're judicial review proof, and that's very important because, as we all know, the days of an English court using common sense are long gone, and that's why when we pick up a paper, some are complete wrong and walking out of a court because there wasn't the evidence, or the police didn't quite use all the words in the caution in the correct order, or missed out a particular letter, and that person walks. So that's why we have to watch our backs, cross the T's and dot the I's, and make sure it's evidence-based. But we're on the case. And for the new members of this new group on the council, I would advise you watch Yes Minister. We are not so bad, counties far worse. We can't say to officers, there is a process, and it frustrates me at times. And I'm sure Conservative members here will be like, you know, there's a pile of fly tip, and I know it's sort of dumbing down this, but it's just a general example. There's a pile of fly tip, it can be picked up today. And it's like, well, no, there is a process. And thanks to Councillor McGowan, it's streamlined, it's digitalised. But when we're trying to deal with more serious stuff like HMOs, we have to go through the process, because if it is not done right, we get a clever twat solicitor, go through it, and Councillor Callaghan can agree with me when I say that. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because they are crucifying our housing revenue account with their fictitious disrepair claims, which we're fighting. Councillor Dell's keeping a very good barrister on board, and we're saving the taxpayer money. But the point I'm coming to, if we are going to a gunfight with a penknife, we're going to get the taxpayer shot up. So, yes, we're very happy to support this amendment, subject to those 3 words being added, which keeps it watertight. But this has to pass. And Councillor Blake, with the comments you made, I'm glad you see we've got this administration in power, because the lights are going back on, which will keep everyone safe from criminals of all walks of life. Councillor Blake and the Conservatives, as they mentioned crime and women's safety, will be grateful for the excellent work the leader done with negotiating with the government with extra, was it police or PCSOs? Both on our streets. So it's going the right way. We've got Together for Safer Communities. I hear what Councillor Blake says, but it comes back to what I said. The French need to stop slapping suntan lotion under their armpits, because they're good at that, and protect their borders, and it stops this problem. Doesn't need the European Courts of Human Rights. Mind you, if a drone that was quite explosive crashed into it, I wouldn't be crying, and I wouldn't be needing Councillor Genet's box of Kleenex he kindly gave the leader. You know. Well, I assumed you bought them, Councillor Genet, because you're an honest person.
Mr Mayor.
Well, eyes don't lie. Anyway. All I was saying, Councillor Genet, through the chair, was that you're an honest person who legally purchased those box of tissues.
Can we get to the point? Thank you.
I was just trying to keep Councillor Genet on safe ground, that was all. So we're happy to support this. We're having that bit of extra added security in, so we're judicial review proof, and we can crack on with the main business of tonight. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. There being no further speakers, we vote on this amendment. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? One abstention. That is carried. Therefore, it becomes part of the substantive motion. We move back to the substantive motion. Do we have any further speakers on the substantive motion? Councillor Smith and then Councillor Joseph. Councillor I'm happy. Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Smith, for giving way. Let me start by addressing the motion before us. I agree with the central point that hotels and HMOs are wholly unsuitable for accommodating economic migrants, asylum seekers, and that our residents cannot be expected to shoulder any more of this challenge. We will vote for this motion as written, and we will vote for the as amended as well. I regret that our amendment has not been included, but nevertheless, this motion is better than nothing. I want to recognise too the many residents in this borough that have shown compassion over the years towards those fleeing conflict and danger. That generosity is real. We saw it at the start of the Ukraine conflict, and it reflects the best of our borough. But compassion must go hand in hand with a word that's come up a lot tonight, which is fairness. And that is where this system is failing. So whilst I support the wording of the motion, the issue is about more than HMOs and hotels. It's about whether residents feel that the state and elected representatives are on their side. There is a creeping feeling across the borough and the country more widely, Mr. Mayor, that the state is no longer the ally of the ordinary British person. That too often the system protects those who break the rules, while those who play by the rules are left behind or ignored. Fairness is one of the most deeply ingrained British values. Nothing winds British people up more when they feel that value is being undermined. As councillors, we have all spoken with the single mother forced to choose between feeding her children and heating her home. We've all helped the pensioner who has worked hard their entire life, yet now struggles to afford the basics. And while our residents struggle, they see others arriving in this country, often unlawfully, apparently being offered accommodation, support and opportunity. To many, it feels like the red carpet is being rolled out, and they cannot understand why so many seem to have forgotten the most basic message, which is that charity should begin at home. Yeah. Mr. Mayor, enough is enough. This council must make clear that hotels and HMOs are not the answer. This is not just a political football anymore, it is approaching a national emergency. And let's be honest, it's not just about small boats, which are often the headline. The deeper problem lies in a system that is riddled with abuse. People arriving on student visas and not leaving when they expire, others coming on family visits and simply staying, fraudulent job sponsorships for work that does not exist. This has created an infrastructure of criminality that's been allowed to spread unchecked for far too long. And until that is dealt with, there will be no way the system can work fairly for either residents or genuine refugees in need. And the problem goes further still. We have a judiciary that seems more concerned with legal technicalities than with natural justice. A media class too often unwilling to reflect the real concerns of local people. And a corporate sector in its insatiable demand for cheap labour that has helped drive down wages and worsen the problem. When our residents look at all of this, they lose faith in the system. They lose trust in institutions. And once that trust is gone, confidence in our democracy and the political mainstream, that's us, is at risk. Mr. Mayor, I love this borough. I grew up here. I know the people of Basildon, Billericay and Wickford. They are my people. And the people of Epping are my people. They're our people too. The protests in Epping were so important, not because they were the actions of angry young men or because they descended into violence, but precisely because they did not. Mothers and children kept the far right out. And despite the best efforts of an establishment that seemed so determined to cause conflict, they were prepared to ship far left protesters in. Those same mothers and children won a historic victory for their communities when they won that injunction. Now we hear the government is going to appeal that decision. They're going to try and reverse safeguards that councils across the country, including this one, of all different political makeups are now trying desperately to protect. Don't like that fan. I do not want the nature of our borough to be changed beyond recognition, as many parts of the country have been. I want it to reflect the values that we grew up with, the community we recognise, and the traditions that bind us together. That is not unreasonable, it is not extreme, that is fairness, and that is what our residents expect us to defend. So yes, let this council continue to lobby government. Yes, let us write to hotel owners, but above all, let us send a stronger message still, that while we will always show compassion to those genuinely fearing war and persecution, we will not stand by while fairness to our residents is undermined. Basildon has done its share. Britain, frankly, has done its share. We cannot and should not be asked to do more. It's time for the government to act and for this council to stand firm. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad I let Councillor Barnes go first because he was going in the same vein as myself. I think the anger that is on the streets stems from them plucky, untouchable few who crashed the world economy in 2008. They had their banks bailed out. The only country that ever sought justice against them was Iceland. And ever since in Western economies, including ours, we have seen things, what the state once provided, taken away. Because ever since the crash of 2008, countries have been living on overdraft just to pay the very basics. And yet more is being taken away from the people. And the British mindset is if things are tough, we tighten our belts, grin and bear it, and try and keep a smile on. And we try and be fair. We know these people up the top in the square mile, they're like the modern day aristocracy. They cannot be touched because the system won't touch them. So when we see predominantly male people posing as refugees, now I will disagree respectfully on the leader at that point. He has seen it with his own eyes and he speaks from his heart. But I respectfully disagree with him. Because we have this mindset as well in this country. In times of war, the men go to fight. The women and children and those who are unable to fight keep out of the battle. Now, if the refugees coming here on the dinghies were mothers, children, elderly people or the disabled, there would not be this heat or anger. But we are seeing fighting age men come into this country. Right? Respectfully, Councillor McGowan. No, I'm speaking as I find, thank you. Now, this is why the anger is there. Now, this government is trying to do something. The previous government was unable to do something because they was too busy plotting to get rid of Boris, too busy trying to get rid of Sunak, and that just whole terrible mess up of Boris's last one and only government. This is why we're in the mess we are in today. This is why the people are angry, and it's going to lead to worse and worse things. And I thank the leader for tabling this motion because people are seeing their local representatives take this issue seriously, demand action, and give them a voice. But something has to be done. And I think this general situation will only improve until this government starts working on growing the economy, making people feel better off and taking off the economic pressures. Because the mindset of us English and British people is that when things are tough, we grin and bear it. But how long must we more, since 2008, grin and bear it, while the people in the square mile are the untouchables who get saved by the taxpayer and avoid legal action? So I will be supporting this amended motion because it's time for action. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Joseph. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I speak tonight not just as Basildon's lead for domestic abuse and sexual violence and the co-chair of our Women's Safety Forum, spearheaded by Councillor Emma Callaghan, but as a Labour councillor determined to keep women's safety at the centre of this debate and to challenge those who would use it as a political weapon. In Basildon, women's safety is not a side issue. It is the issue. Across all 5 towns, it comes up time and again. Women and girls are not feeling safe in their homes, on our streets, or in their daily lives. And yet tonight, Reform have us believe that the danger to women comes from 319 asylum seekers in this borough. Let me be clear, that is false. It is cynical and it's dangerous. The truth is this: the greatest threat to women in Basildon does not come from asylum seekers. It comes from within our communities, from our homegrown men and boys, from domestic abuse, from harassment and sexual violence that too many of our residents know only too well. According to the femicide census, around 80 women every year, that's 1.5 a week, are killed by a current or a former partner. Now, Save Lives, a UK-wide charity dedicated to ending domestic abuse.
Carry on, Councillor. Thank you.
So, apparently, Save Lives, which is a UK-wide charity dedicated to ending domestic abuse, abuses the figure even higher in recent years at nearly 1.8 a week. And 1 in 4 women experience domestic violence in her lifetime. Those are the numbers that should horrify us, not families fleeing war and persecution. I will not allow women's pain to be hijacked for cheap political gain, okay? When the women of Basildon tell us that they are unsafe, our duty is to listen and to act, yeah? Not to twist their pain into politics. Now, let's also be honest about Basildon. We have no asylum hotels, not even a single one. So when Reform posture about injunctions, it is legally meaningless. It's heat without light, and the real risk for Basildon is profiteering private landlords and the growth of HMOs, and this administration is already dealing with that, and through our licensing model grounded in evidence, not slogans. And while Reform shout about closing borders, let's remember the facts. Since Brexit, crossings have soared. Yeah? The Dublin Accord, which once allowed us to return people safely, no longer exists. And that route was shut down by this government, this Conservative government. This chaos is their creation, and Reform are simply adding fuel to the fire. Maya Anelou once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Reform has shown us who they are, not protectors of women, but opportunists exploiting women's fears. This administration, by contrast, stands with Basildon. We stand with our local families waiting years for housing. We stand with survivors of abuse who need refuge and support. We stand with women and girls who deserve safety in their homes or on the streets. And yes, we stand with asylum seekers. Many of them are women and children fleeing the very violence Reform claimed to oppose. So tonight, let us reject scapegoating. Let us confront the real threat: male violence, underfunded services, and a culture that excuses abuse. And let us commit to building a Basildon where women and girls live free from fear. Because every woman in Basildon deserves better than fear. And Labour will fight for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joseph. Well done. Turn your mic off, please. Thank you. Councillor Emma Callaghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The people of Pitsea North West have had enough. The number of HMOs Basildon has been forced to take for asylum seeker accommodation is a disgrace. It's way too high. Look at Harlow, another new town with cheap housing. They've already put a stop to HMOs and hotels for asylum seekers. Meanwhile, Basildon is expected to carry the load. Neighbouring counties like Kent, Suffolk, Hertfordshire, they don't have nearly as many HMOs. If this was fair, if this was balanced, then the pressure would be shared. Instead, it's places like ours, already struggling with the cost of living, housing shortages, insecure jobs, that get lumped with the most HMOs. Not the Tory suburbs with the Gales Cafe on every corner. And let's not let Reform UK and the Tories get away with this nonsense online, telling people this is Labour's fault. That a Labour government has rolled over and handed Britain to asylum seekers. It's rubbish. Ask yourself, why are there so many people stuck in the system? Why aren't they being processed? Why aren't they being returned? Here's the truth. In just 1 year, the Labour government has shut down 50% of the hotels that Robert Jenrick commissioned as his big idea back in 2022. Remember, that was his solution. Just book more hotels. And who got rich? The hoteliers at the very bottom of the market. When the Bell Hotel in Epping makes more money every week than the Belfry, you know something has gone seriously wrong. Now, some here are celebrating the injunction as the Bell Hotel as a victory. But be careful what you wish for, because pushing people out of one centralised site and scattering them into HMOs across working class communities like Pitsea only makes it harder to manage and harder to monitor, and it creates more misery for local people. Now let me turn to Reform UK and their future candidate for leader, Mr. Kevin Blake. They say they are standing up for women's safety. They tell their followers that closing HMOs and hotels is about protecting women and girls. Let's deal with that in 3 points. First, conflating the 319 asylum seekers in this borough with every violent sexual crime in this borough of over 200,000 people is wrong. If any asylum seeker commits a crime, the Labour government is actually absolutely right. They should be deported, and every single member of this chamber agrees. Second, the overwhelming majority of violent sexual crimes in Basildon are not committed by asylum seekers. They are committed by homegrown perpetrators. For 5 years now, the #1 reported crime in every ward of this borough has been linked to domestic abuse, sexual violence and harassment. During COVID, those numbers spiked. And where were most women at that time? At home. Third, I was elected in May 2024 alongside Councillor Power and Councillor Joseph. Thanks to Leader prioritising the issue of violence against women and girls, we have sat down with survivors. We have spoken with charities. We have heard stories that will stay with us and haunt us for life. And I will not take lectures on women's safety from Reform UK. Because here in Pitsea North West, my MP is a man who went to prison for beating his girlfriend. And it wasn't just a push, as he likes to say. He kicked her, and he kicked her, and he kicked her. And what did Reform do? What did Councillor Jeanette do? What did their Andrew Tate-loving leader do? They backed him, and they backed him, and they backed him.
Disgraceful.
Clasping him in a sweaty embrace and calling him, and I quote, an absolutely incredible bloke.
Shame. Shame. Resign.
I guess it's fine for men to abuse women and children, in Councillor Jeanette's word tonight, if we know who they are.
Shame.
So let's be clear. The idea that we should listen to Councillor Jeanette, Nigel Farage and James McMurdoch lecture us on women's safety is like asking an arsonist to run the fire brigade. Back this motion tonight, back it to free up more homes for Basildon families, back it to give women and children a chance to flee abusive men, and back it to show this council, unlike Reform UK, actually cares about women's safety. The people of Pitsea North West and across this borough deserve nothing less.
Thank you. Councillor Callahan. Thank you, Councillor Callahan. Councillor Journay.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Colleagues, members of the public, I rise tonight from a prepared statement, and I say that very clearly at the start, because we all know the kind of tactics the leader opposite uses when he's losing the argument. He doesn't debate. He doesn't answer questions. He tries to smear, silence, and even get people arrested. That's the game, but not tonight. Tonight, the people of Basildon deserve the truth, not political theatre. Now, what are we here for? We are here once again. The council, under the watch of this Labour leader, has been caught red-handed trying to spin, distract and cover up. They put out a politically charged statement about me, highlighting asylum seekers' intents behind our town centre. A statement, by the way, that had no business being issued by impartial officers. Yeah. Especially a suspended ex-Labour chairman posing as our head of communications.
Councillor, you need to be speaking to the amendment, to the motion.
Okay, fine,
Thank you.
fine.
The motion as I've read. Thank you.
Fine.
Thank you.
So let me tell you something now.
Please speak to the
Basildon people
motion.
are not
Thank you.
stupid. They see through this. They know when they're being spun. And they know when Labour is playing games, okay? They know that the town centre has been neglected, the housing situation has been ignored, and services stretched to breaking point. And they know the leader is more interested in protecting his political career than protecting Basildon families. Now, tonight, we've put some amendments on the table. Amendments that will put people of this borough first. Amendments that demand transparency, that demand audits, and that demand accountability. Because if we don't take control... Pardon, sorry?
It's not a conversation,
exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It includes members of the Labour front bench.
Thank you. Because if we don't take control, the Home Office will. And if we don't stand up for residents, then who else will? And I'll tell you something else. The British people are fair. Basildon people are fair. But fairness cuts both ways. You don't solve a housing crisis by filling hotels and HMOs with asylum seekers while local families are on waiting lists for years. You don't build trust by issuing politically loaded press releases when the public deserve the facts. And you certainly don't show strength by trying to get your opponents arrested for doing their job. So, Mayor, I'll finish with this. To the leader, stop playing politics with our borough. Stop silencing those who tell the truth. Stop hiding behind press releases and PR machines, because Basildon deserves better. And the residents watching tonight, I say this to you now, this isn't about party colours. It's about who is willing to stand up, call it out and fight for you. And I promise you this, I will keep fighting for you every single day, no matter how many times he tries to send the boys in blue after me. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Journay. Councillor Callahan, you'd like to wrap up? Thank you. Councillor Callahan. Councillor Callahan, you'd like to wrap up?
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Let's go through this in some detail. Councillor Brown, she was right to highlight that people should be supporting the motion this evening. Councillor Barnes, if I deal with his contribution, he was right, I think, to mention Ukraine and the support that the borough gave to the people of Ukraine. And he went on to make a speech which at the beginning of it sounded quite Blairite. He just needed to mention ID cards and I would have been fully behind it. But he went off by, in my opinion, losing all perspective because he talked about hotels as a national emergency. I think what we have to do is just put some of this into perspective. There were double the number of people at the London Stadium watching West Ham get beat on Friday night as are in hotels across the whole of the UK right now. We are not looking at millions of people, as people would suggest. And you know, I've had my fallings out with BJ Harrington, as Councillor Smith alluded to earlier on. I've been very critical of Essex Police over the course of the last few weeks. Who knows? They might make it up to me. But they were It is wrong to suggest that they were bussing in left-wing people when all of the aerial footage and the drone footage proves that that was completely wrong. I do want to deal with Councillor Smith's point because he's right to talk about the fact that we are approaching 20 years in which there have been huge societal changes since the global financial crisis. But let me just say, I abhor this phrase of fighting aged men when it comes to this, because, again, I actually have been on the ground in Sudan. And last week, I went to speak to one of the individuals who's not an asylum seeker, who's a refugee, who is in Basildon Town Centre, and he's a young kid from Darfur. And there isn't a single person in this room, I can tell you now, that would have survived Darfur. And there is absolutely nobody in this room that would have survived the journey that that kid made. Fat, sweaty blokes do not make it on a 2-year journey on the backs of lorries without food, without water, for days and days on end. Only the strongest people get to Calais. Let me tell you that. And if you are there and you are getting on one of those dinghies, you have been through unimaginable physical hell to get to that point. So if they are fit and healthy by the time they get there, it is not really a surprise given what those people have been through. And there isn't anybody in this chamber, let me tell you, who will ever have experienced anything close to the kind of physical ordeal that those men and women have been put through. So let me just say, I completely disagree with it. But what we are alluding to, I think, is the systematic failures over 10 years. And, you know, I just want to point out, we cut foreign aid, which was essentially stopping immigration at source funding. That hasn't turned out to be a particularly good idea, has it, to go and cut that money? We went through Brexit, and as we've alluded to tonight, it's had massive economic downturns. We committed the biggest mistake in terms of putting economic sanctions on a country that any country has ever made with that. And we got ourselves out of the Dublin Accord by not negotiating a returns agreement with the EU. You can sit here all night and say, the French should do this, the French should do that. Why should they? We're not in the EU. So for there, we say stop the boats, they say off you go. And that is exactly what we would be doing if the shoe was on the other foot as well. So that isn't going to get us anywhere. But thankfully, we have a government and a Prime Minister that is now actually negotiating a grown-up agreement with the French in order to try and solve that crisis. I want to say I thought the best contribution tonight was Councillor Joseph. Yeah. I just think it really sums up the state of the debate from the opposition when you have a woman standing up here tonight talking about saying that it is not a side issue, it is the issue, and that women's pain has been hijacked for cheap political gain. And then what you have is middle-aged men sitting over there shaking their heads at her, telling her that she's wrong. I mean, that just sums it up about how fickle the desire on those Tory benches is to try and stand up for women and girls. I think Councillor Emma Callaghan is absolutely right to highlight the hypocrisy. It is a source of absolute shame to me that I am represented in the mother of all parliaments by a convicted woman beater. And you know, he represents a party over there that James McMurdoch was elected to represent, and he sits there smirking and made some pretty abhorrent comments during some of the speeches tonight in terms of 1.5 people, as the statistics were showing, who are being murdered and facing domestic violence. And he sat there laughing. And it just goes to no, you did. No, you did. You sat there laughing. We saw it, we heard it from you. And let me say this as well, because let me say, I thought tonight, turning up here, that the most embarrassing thing about Councillor Janae was going to be the clobber in the hair plugs. And it turned out to be the speech that he gave tonight, because there was not a single thing in there about the issues. He did not mention once. Reform UK did not say one thing tonight about the families who are in the HMOs, who are working class families being turfed out on Long Riding and on Gilgrove and on all of those places. We have, on this side, that's what our motion is about. What he did tonight was he stood up with a ChatGPT speech, right? Which is all he can do, because he can't actually think for himself and make arguments. He stood up there with a ChatGPT speech and made it all about himself. Woe is me. So here we are, we're talking about working class families who are in dire straits at this moment in time, who are being forced out of their homes. We're talking about vulnerable people who are fleeing some of the most unimaginable conflict. And what does Reform UK do? They make it all about themselves. And that is so typical of what we hear. And again, what we heard him do was go after council officers, and that's why the meeting is having to become to an early conclusion tonight, because he's going after council officers in his speeches. He talks about spin, about distraction. He has got nothing to say. And that is so blindingly obvious. I said in the election that if you voted for reform, you got a Tory. And that is exactly what we've heard. Councillor Blake embarrassing himself and his party by aligning himself with that absolute charlatan of a councillor. And you know what? Tonight, Mr. Mayor, we've taken him apart and we haven't even got out of first gear. I can't wait for the next full council meeting.
That concludes the debate. I will now take a vote on the substantive motion as amended. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, and have a safe journey home.